Well, welcome. In our typical style, we are on a rooftop. And as you may know, I'm Riley.
I'm Kirsten. Welcome. Actually, today we were going to talk about something that someone on YouTube asked us to talk about. So thank you for the requests. If you guys have any other requests, keep it coming because we don't know what to talk about.
Or if you want to know about our love lives, we're more than willing to give information.
All right. Well, with that, we're actually not talking about love today. We're talking about purpose. Maybe this is just because I overthink everything in general, but I think a lot of people do really overthink their purpose and their calling.
100%, every day.
Well, I think that with, both of us, like I'm public speaker, she's an actress, we have very pressure cooking industries. But to actually intentionally take off the pressure and live more lightly, I feel like it gives us more freedom to run towards our purpose.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, I feel like so often, I get frustrated at myself because so often I feel like I actually tie myself down. Mm-hmm. Like I put so many expectations and I come from a very high achieving family, and so I put these achievements that I have to do and I have to succeed. In my mind, it's like every time I do this and every time I get in this battle with my mind, I'm tying myself down. Mm-hmm. But if I actually like release it and cut off those chains, cut off those ties and run forward and hold things more lightly and stop overthinking, even though it's so hard, there's freedom in that. I feel like I'm running faster.
Especially if you do something creative. Pressure stunts creativity. And so like I remind myself, like, you have to rest, I have to relax, I have to go to a museum, like I have to do things that like I'm like, this is a waste of time, like I should be doing the X, Y, and Z. But the more that I focus on those things, the more peace I have about things not happening on my own timeline. Because as long as I still have long-term goals that I am moving and taking a step every day, like you want to be patient, but you want to keep walking forward and working hard. So I think it's just like a very delicate balance between, we were talking about this the other day.
I wrote something down, and I wrote down in my journal, like, hold tenderly the twin emotion of sadness and joy, because I think at the same time you can hold both emotions.
Yeah.
But it was the idea that like you can hold two things tenderly at the same time.
Yeah. And there's like a quote, life is just a balance between holding on and letting go.
Oh, that's so good.
When you're talking about when you kind of like let yourself go, then you can actually run more quickly to your purpose. I think sometimes like the lesson and like the blessings that I believe God wants to give you don't come until you let go, because you can't receive with a closed fist. And as much as I think there are times where I was like, okay, like I have faith, I'll be patient, but I was still doing things in my own strength. I have a really good like tangible example of this. There's this TV show that the week I started writing a script about my dad's blindness that he has, that same week, the CW greenlit a show about a girl being blind, and I was like, I need to be on this show. Like, I literally like started stalking everyone on the show, like how to get involved. And then I did end up meeting one of the casting directors for it, and then I met like one of the actors on it, and then I met someone that was directing one of the episodes, and I was like, what? Like, something's gonna click. And those were all things that I kind of like, I went to the casting director workshop. I was trying to intentionally pave my way, and then nothing really came of it other than I made these contacts where they were filming in Canada, so just logistics. A year later, after I'd kind of forgotten about it, I met the showrunner and creator of the entire show, and she invited me to the writer's room, and I just like, I couldn't have planned that, and once I like let go of it, it came. And so it's like, and it was the top person of the show that I could have met. So it's kind of like, I learned that lesson of like, you can do surrendering, and like, and I did, in my own strength, I did make great connections, but they didn't lead me to the connection that actually let me in the door.
It's like, what will are you surrendering to, yours or God's? Because I think if you surrender to God, it's going to be a whole lot greater.
Absolutely.
Because he's the one who has like the whole world. He sees everything at the same time. He can be like, the idea of God himself, it just blows me away constantly. And so,
and in that, the time between me kind of forgetting about that show, and I started to just focus more on creative process and creating, and not really the outcome. I was focusing on the, where did this pen come from?
I noticed you picked it up before, and I was like, it's getting serious. She's about to write some notes, people.
I had a pen in my hand. Anyway,
you were talking about writing and creativity. It's so
subconscious. When you focus on the process instead of the outcome, like I was focusing on my writing classes and just anything that can stimulate me creatively. Then when I met that woman, because I wasn't so hyper focused on how to get connected to that show, I was focusing on my writing, and I was in a place where I was talking to her about writing, and then she invited me to a writer's room. And then I would have never been equipped to be in that position where it would have led to anything if I hadn't just been surrendered to the process.
In order to find your purpose, you also have to be willing to surrender your purpose. And what I mean by that is that you're surrendering a part of your purpose in exchange for something that's even greater. So for example, when I moved here to America, I always knew I loved public speaking, and I was set that that was like exactly what I was gonna do. But when I moved here, I had this season where I was just studying. I was doing my full-time studying for my master's program, and I didn't have time to speak, nor was I someone that was known. I didn't have my network sorted out, and so I started to write. And I didn't see that coming, but writing has been this amazing area of my life that is still satisfying my soul, but I had to be willing to surrender for a season public speaking, which I was so convinced was my purpose, in order for something else, only to realize that that something else was just as good.
It's kind of funny that writing has been that for both of us.
Yeah.
And being willing to pick up and kind of focus on something else, like you usually will be blessed in the thing that you want. So like through me writing, like I was just talking about the showrunner that I met, I got to develop this relationship with her because of writing. And then I produced a short film that I wrote. Even that whole process opened doors for me in acting. So I think sometimes we're meant to learn things that actually will serve that. Because like those dreams that we have on our heart from a young age, I think they're there for a reason, but you have to be open and willing to go down these other paths, and maybe go down, like if you think of the idea of like a hike, you have to be willing to go down little trails and see that maybe you'll see something that you weren't expecting to, but it might help you with like your getting to your final destination.
And your overall enjoyment.
Yeah, just like having that like childlike sense of adventure, I think. Being like, what's next? Once I stopped worrying about like, I don't have any auditions this week, it's like waking up and be like, maybe I will get an audition today, or maybe I like, what's gonna happen today? And just kind of having that childlike expectation of like anything can happen, because like when we're little kids, you really do have that sense of like anything can happen. And I think having that mentality and that energy and putting that out there is when you will have the most great surprises.
And I also feel like when you're a child, if someone gives you a different toy, you're like, oh, what the heck? Like there's just so much excitement with what is new. And so being willing for God to give you something different, and you still to be just as willing to accept what is different, knowing that it's gonna probably give you just as enjoyment as that past toy gave that child.
Right. You just have to be willing to let go of what you thought it was gonna look like. So.
And on my wall, as I think we've talked about this, is I have it hold it like a butterfly. Is like the idea is like when you hold a butterfly, you don't want to try to like squash it, because otherwise you'll kill it. You just hold it lightly. And so like with our purpose, with our dreams, hold it like a butterfly, because you have to be willing to let it fly away or let it stay with you, but trust that God will know whether it needs to stay in your hand or whether it needs to leave you.
Yeah.
Because I sometimes think that if I hold my dreams too tightly, I actually end up suffocating them.
So thank you for watching.
Thanks. If you have any questions or comments, or if you want us to talk about anything else, feel free to let us know.
We would love to hear from you.
Until next time.
She reminds me of the summertime, way back in 2003. Hey, I've been chilling on the coast with my